Hello and welcome back to my English classes. Welcome back to my English classes after a long time. Now, today we are going to see the explanation of the last lesson of class 12th. Now, I'll give the explanation point wise, so please listen to it and please do like and subscribe my channel. Thank you. The first point is late for school. Now, here the main character is Mr. H. Hamill and friends. Now, Mr. M. Hamill is a teacher, and Friends is one of the students of Mr. Hamill. Now, the narrator, that is Friends, started for school very late that morning. He feared his class teacher, Mr. M. Hamill. He would question the students on participles. In grammar portion we have participles. So that day, particular day, he was going to ask questions related to participles, and Friends was afraid of this thing, that he is not able to understand and he won't be able to give the answers to those questions. The narrator didn't know even the first word about them. He feared a scolding. He thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. The weather was very warm and bright. It was hot. On this second thought, he decided otherwise. He hurried off to school. Now, on one point, at times we also, when we don't want to go in to a particular place, or we are afraid of going to that place, we decide not to go there. In the same way, here Friends also decided to skip the school. But as it was hot, the weather was not very good. So, on the second thought, he decided to go to school, and now he started moving fast to reach the school on time, but he was late. Second point, crowd in front of the bulletin board. As Friends walking past the town hall, he saw a big crowd in front of the bulletin board. In schools, we have bulletin boards where the notices are kept. So he saw that so many people were standing there. For the last 2 years, all the bad news had come from there. The people got the news of the lost battles and other important information only from there. As in schools also we get information from the bulletin board because the notices are put on that board. In the same way, he thought of this, that all the bad news comes from that bulletin board. So he thought, why the people are standing there for long. Third point, unusual calm at school. Calm means quietness. That day, particular day, there was silence in the school. Usually, when the school began, there was lot of hustle and bustle. Means lot of moving here and there. Students are moving, making noise and all. The opening and closing of desks and lessons orally repeated loudly in created a lot of commotion. Means students coming, keeping their bags, shouting, smiling, screaming, and all these noise are there all the days. But today, when the writer is there, he is not observing these things. He is observing quite silentness. But now it was also still. Friends could depend on the commotion to get to his desk without being noticed. But now he went in before everybody. Now today, as there was no hustle bustles, there was no movements of the, so he quickly moved to his class. He blushed and he was quite frightened. He was frightened. Okay. उसको अजीब सा लगा. ठीक है, उसको शर्म सी भी आई और अजीब सा भी लगा. But nothing happened. No punishment. Mr. Hamill saw and asked him very kindly to take his seat. Now, every day, as Mr. Hamill was harsh to the students, but that day he was very calm. He was quiet and in a very polite way, he said to him to sit down. Next point, the last lesson. Now, what is the last lesson? The last lesson was that day was Mr. Hamill's last day in the school. That is why the lesson is given, the last lesson. Mr. Hamill was in a formal clothes that he wore only on inspections and prize day. Means that day Mr. Hamill was dressed up properly. you can say in a very when we go for any functions or any parties, we dress up in a different way as usual days. We don't wear bright dresses, and we don't decked up properly, but on special occasions we used to do it. So in the same way, Mr. Hamill was also decked up properly that day. The whole school seemed quite strange and silent. The most surprising thing was the presence of the village elders. Means that day the elders were there, the village people were there in the school. They were sitting quietly at the back benches. Mr. Hamill mounted the chair and spoke in a grave and gentle voice. Very means suppose he was very disheartened, very broken hearted, in a very soft voice, in a very in a different way he was talking to the people. My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. Now he tell the people there and the students that today is his last lesson. He told them that an order had come from Berlin. Only German would be taught in the schools of Els. Means from that day onwards, German was taught in the school as the orders given by the Berlin people, as Mr. Hamill used to teach French. The new master would join the next day. It was their last lesson in the French. He wanted them to be very attentive because that day was the last, so he wanted everyone to be very attentive to listen to his lesson carefully. Next point, sudden love for French. Means all days it was a casual thing, it was a natural thing that he used to teach, but at times when in our lives also we have special occasions, then we put up special efforts also. In the same way, there was a sudden love for French, as it was the last lesson of French of Mr. Hamill. The narrator felt sorry for not learning his lessons in French. Means French was not preparing his lessons properly. He never liked his books. He didn't have any interest in grammar and history. But now he developed a fascination for them. Means that day he was very eager to know French. Even he started liking Mr. Hamill. Why? Because that day he was very kind to them, and he was very polite. He didn't scold them. So that day, for the narrator, Mr. Hamill was also a very good person to him. The idea that he would not teach them anymore. This was the point, that Mr. Hamill from next day he is not going to come. So that day he was liking Mr. Hamill also. Right? Made friends forgot all about his rulers. He used to punish. So that day he forgot that also because it was his last lesson. He even forgot how cranky his teacher was. Means very irritating, very frustrating teacher was there. जो छोटी छोटी बात पे गुस्सा कर जाते थे, मारते डांटते थे. So that day everything was okay. Now it was his turn to recite, but he not mixed up and confused. Now that day, Franz was able to understand his lessons properly, because with concentration he was listening to Mr. Hamill. So that day he was able to give the answers to the questions. Next point, Mr. Hamill glorifies French. Mr. Hamill showed his concern that the people of Els generally gave no importance to French, but that day people were there to listen to the French language. They put off learning their own language. Okay? Means there the French was spoken, but the people were not aware of this thing, and they were not aware of this thing also. They were not even interested in learning their mother tongue. Okay? French was not only exceptions, many others were also guilty on this count. He declared that French language was the most beautiful language in the world. Now that day Mr. Hamill said this, that French language is the beautiful, the first very loved language is French in the world. It was clearest and the most logical. Now according to Mr. Hamill, that day French language was very important to him. They must guard it among themselves and never forget it. It appeared that Mr. Hamill wanted to give them all he knew before going away. That means that day he wanted to express his views regarding the French language. He wanted to tell the people that French was the most important language, and it is the most easiest and the logical language in the world. So people should take interest in learning language otherwise no need to learn any other language. Now the next point is vive la French, which means long live France. At all once the church clock struck 12. The triumphs of the Persian soldiers sounded under their windows. Now here, as the Berlin have overtaken the El's place after the war, so these soldiers now were coming in the El's. Mr. Hamel stood up, very pale, in a very sad mood, in a very dull mood. He stood up from his chair. He tried to speak. He tried to speak, but something choked him. Now, at times when we don't know anything, we are unable to speak in a proper way. In the same way, he also choked after seeing the soldiers. He couldn't speak. Then he turned to the blackboard. He took a piece of chalk and wrote as large as he could. Vive la French, means long live French. In place of speaking, as he was choked, he wrote in big letters on the blackboard. Then, without a word, he made a gesture to them with his hand. School is dismissed. Now you may go. Means at times when we are not able to confront the person or confront the situation, we try to move away from that. In the same way, Mr. Hamel also did. When the soldiers were there, he was not able to speak much, and then he wrote on the blackboard, long live France, and he left the place. He said that the school is over. I hope you have understood the chapter. Please do like and subscribe my channel, My English Classes. Thank you.